Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. My cats found a lost racing pigeon. I live in the Midlands, UK, United Kingdom. For context, it was summer. I have 3 cats. For all intensive purposes, I'll call them shy, evil, and curious. We came home one day to find Shy meowing at the door, extremely anxious and skitty. This is very unusual, and because Shy has only one eye and has had a traumatic past, which means that we thought he was being bullied by other cats in the neighborhood, and this was unacceptable. Because it had never happened before. I ventured to the back garden expecting to see an ominous cat on the fence hissing aggressively at my garden. But I was shocked to find Evil and Curious with an injured bird. Evil was playing with, torturing it, and Curious was just watching from afar. I instantly scared my cats away from the bird because Evil only usually does this to moths and mice. Only rarely a bird, and they always manage to escape. But this pigeon was clearly injured and we thought it was dead. It was just playing dead. After assessing the situation, we touched the bird and we could tell it was definitely alive. Our only option was to keep it away from the cats. The yard dog could not fly and would continue to be attacked by Evil if it were left alone. We put it in a cat box. I'm not sure what happened here, I don't remember. I think we must have fed it or somehow helped nurture it. I don't recall fully. Anyways, there was a tag on the pigeon's leg. It was a capsule we disconnected, opened and read. It stated this bird was a racing pigeon, and we gathered that it had most likely been blown off course by the storm and lightning that had been over us earlier that day. I suspected that it had been blown off course and disoriented by the tropical storm. Because birds keep direction by ions and stuff that tropical storms are full of. Very gross oversimplification, but you can get the idea. We called the number on the letter. The receiver only picked up the phone after many hours, and he told us all about the pigeon and how our theories were mostly correct. It was taken to the owner, who lived only an hour away, who offered us £100 for our time, but we rejected the offer. I would have taken it, but I didn't deliver the pigeon. Thanks for reading all the way to the end. I just wanted to share my mildly interesting story to the 1, 2, heck maybe even 10 people that would have read this to the end. End of story. Next story. Your story equals $5. And a feature in a book. Hello all. I am currently working on my senior capstone project. My plan is to take the stories from people of all walks of life and create a book that has no particular theme except to show that everyone has something interesting to say. I know writing can be a drag, and that's why I'm offering $5 to whoever wants to contribute. I know it's small, but I'm a broke college student, so give me break, haha. What I'm looking for is a true story. It can be anything. Funny, sad, inspiring, scary, etc. All I ask is that it is non-fiction, and preferably something that has happened to you personally. I am asking for stories that have a minimum of 500 words. I'll accept some that are shorter. But try to aim for this count. If you think that you have something you would like to share, feel free to comment or send me a message. I'll be accepting up to 20 different stories, and I will send out money through Venmo once the story has been sent. I will also consider making copies of this book, maybe even publishing it, and give copies to all featured authors. Please help me out. Thank you all. End of story. Next story. I've got addicted to my own game. 11 comments, share, save, hide, report. 93% upvoted. End of story. Next story. Nuketown. End of story. Next story. My dad passed away on April Fool's 8 comments share save hide report 99% upvoted. End of story. Next story. Live streaming almost ruined my life. I, 22M, was 17 at the time and was gaining popularity on Periscope. If you're not familiar with it, it was a live streaming app that was bought by Twitter but was a smaller time app. Not too popular. I was young and dumb and impulsive. I'd often flirt around with girls who were on the app. It was fun and harmless considering we'd never meet IRL. I can make excuses for myself like that I was longing for a relationship because I felt like I was getting too old to still not have had a GF, but in reality, I was just stupid. I live in the US. One day this girl from Sweden joined my stream. We'll call her Ashley. I was very warmed up to idea of a Scandinavian girl and we hit it off pretty quickly. Got her Snapchat and then the next day we had a 2 or 3 hour long phone call. I thought I was in love. We really bonded over that phone call. Things continued as we talk more and more. We got around to FaceTiming, so it was a relief she wasn't a catfish. We started, officially dating. Looking back on things now, it was really stupid. A complete waste of my time. It was basically just flirting and complimenting each other most of the time with little to no meaningful conversation as time went on. We'd even started to go days and even weeks without talking. Things got difficult as we were both working a lot and in different time zones. But really now thinking back, this was bullshit. She could have made time for me. I mean, going 2 weeks without talking. Really? But whatever. I was an idiot to get into an online relationship anyway. We dated for 6 months. I was stressed about not talking in so long. I spilt my heart out to her in a Snapchat message. She replied with the words I didn't want to hear. That we had to end things. At the time, this absolutely crushed me and I cried about it. Dying to get her back. I couldn't move on. Thinking back on this, I can't believe how much I've matured. A month later, me and my real-life friend, who we will call Steve, were live streaming together. This woman, who I'll call Becky, joined the stream and hit it off with us. The next day, she joined my stream and I broke down a bit about Ashley and Becky offered to help me. I felt desperate at this time and was willing to do anything just to get her back, or at least get proper closure. Becky said she'd message Ashley for me. Steve and Becky really started to bond during this as well. Becoming really close friends. Becky would Skype call me and Steve, often together at the same time, and discuss the Ashley situation. She'd tell me what was going on in the messages between them and how things were complicated, but that Ashley loved me. She'd say Ashley was going to join in on the Skype call and that we could make up. She never joined. I'd stay up with Becky and Steve, sometimes up until 3 a.m. waiting for her to join. She never did. Obviously, even as a stupid 17-year-old. Red flags were waving. I didn't want to be confrontational with Becky, but I was obviously questioning things. I asked for screenshots of the conversations she was having with Ashley, to which she refused, saying it was violating her privacy. Becky would send us pictures of herself but refused to ever FaceTime or send direct Snapchats to my friend Steve. At this point, I knew she was trolling us. She sounded like a genuine woman on the phone, but she was likely a dude. But regardless, not who she said she was. She would get aggressive and threatening when questioned. Things didn't make sense. Becky claimed Ashley wanted me back, but why would she just message me directly? Why wouldn't she send proof? I wanted to just cut Becky off, but I couldn't because of one sole reason. Steve was actually too gullible. He actually believed her bullshit. I didn't want to lose my friend, so I played ball. It was hard because I needed to find a way to definitively prove she was fake for him to finally let go. Their friendship became so strong that Steve told her things he never even told me, and we had been friends for almost 6 years at this point. Becky had been stalking me for longer than I knew. I hadn't come to this realization until later, but she was also posing as another girl on my streams, who I'd never personally message but would give her advice on stream. Long before this, because she often vented to me about her problems, Becky somehow sniffed her out, and called me and Steve with the other girl supposedly on the other line to expose her as a catfish. It was a guy speaking on the phone, who I believed to be Becky's true voice. The other girl had also given us phone numbers, to which me and Steve texted, and was then revealed to be a guy right after the call. Becky would constantly change her phone number, telling Steve it was because someone was stalking her. Obviously she was using fake numbers from an app. Anyway, I couldn't exactly shake her off without risking my friendship with Steve. Becky once convinced him on the phone that I was a shitty friend for getting him sucked into my shit with Ashley, and I had to cry and beg for his forgiveness on the phone with both of them on the line. I lied to Becky that I was growing up in an abusive household. This is grossly untrue. Neither of my parents have ever abused me, but I thought the pity would possibly get to her if she had any sort of heart to perhaps leave me alone. It didn't. When I questioned another thing later, she threatened to call CPS to have me and my little sister thrown out of the house. So I had to continue playing ball. The biggest problem was that Becky convinced Steve that her and Ashley were coming to my town. That she flown Ashley out from Sweden to meet me in real life. He actually fucking believed this and gave her my address so I couldn't risk any threats. I walked around outside with Steve for hours, waiting for Ashley and Becky to arrive. Of course they didn't. I thought Steve would finally wake up. Becky cut him off that night, and he went home and told me stole a shot of vodka from his parents to take the edge off, acknowledging the whole thing was bullshit. Peace was restored. For a few days, Becky messaged Steve with some bullshit excuse on why she didn't show up that night. Convinced him to trust her again, and things got even worse. Becky told us that she and Ashley were at a local hotel in my town. Obviously I knew this was complete bullshit, but not gullible Steve. I even went out of my way to call every hotel in my town asking for her name to prove she wasn't there. Steve started to have some sense and questioned it. She told us she used a different name to check in the hotel. I mean, come on. I was too scared to confront her because I didn't want to lose Steve or have my life ruined by her threats. She even continued to pretend she was in my town but made excuses on not meeting us. Steve went to a local restaurant to meet her and it was closed, and other places as well, to which she obviously never showed up. Becky found the name of a local bar in my town and told me to meet Ashley there because that's where she was. With no car or even a driver's license at the time, there was no way in hell I was making my parents drive me to an imaginary meeting just to appease Becky, or walk an hour in the freezing cold. I made excuses left and right, and Becky made me look like a bad person for not going to meet my long-lost love. She continued with even more insane shit. Called us saying they were finally coming to meet us. Proceeded to say Ashley slipped in the shower and severely cut herself, having to go to the hospital. Called us back with a fake heart rate monitor sound in the background. Steve bought every word of it as I painfully had to play stupid. At this point, I no longer cared about Ashley. That was obviously long over, but I wanted to save my friend. I was harassed with phone calls my whole Christmas break dealing with this shit. Scared of her having to pick up the phone. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't confront her, but I just ignored her and stopped talking to her. Steve and I continued to have a regular friendship in high school, and I was too scared to ask or entertain the idea. I had gone weeks without talking to her, which turned to months. I was hoping Becky and Steve's relation would die out or that he would smarten up. I graduated high school, and a couple weeks later, Steve left the group chat with me and my other two closest friends in school. I questioned him, wondering what we had done to him. He replied, "Months and months of this Ashley bullshit." My heart sank. I knew Becky was still manipulating him. I was so embarrassed by this whole thing. I didn't want to tell my best friend, who we will call David. I had no choice but to finally confess this whole thing to him. He knew about Ashley but not Becky. I was hoping with his help, we could get through to him. David is one of the toughest guys I know when it comes to confrontations. Becky had basically manipulated Steve into thinking me and David were pieces of shit and awful friends. She did not convince him anything about our other friend, strangely enough. Our other friend rarely used social media, so it made sense how he wasn't a target. Me and David argued with him for hours, trying to explain how insanely stupid he was for believing this shit. At this point, I realized Becky's threats were empty and I needed to focus on getting my friend back. The argument went in circles as we had to give up. I asked him one question. I said, "Yes or no? I will not tell Becky if you're doing this out of fear. I just need to know. Yes or no? Do you really believe Becky was in our town and never was able to actually meet us?" He said, "Yes." I knew there was no sense of arguing with him. That there was nothing me or David could do. If he really believed that, then he was far too gullible. All I could do was hope everything would work out and that he'd wake up. That Becky would have some endgame with him and he'd realize the truth. But the days became the weeks. Weeks became the months. Months became the years. I have not heard from him since. He has me blocked on everything. Me and David initially were planning on going to his parents, but we had to give up. At this point, it's been over 5 years. The friendship is gone. The other friend I mentioned is still occasionally in touch with him, but we're not too close anymore, and I think it's best I let sleeping dogs lie and not ask about it. I still wonder if Steve is still under Becky's control or if she finally had some awful endgame with him and he woke up too late. As for me, I continued Periscope, becoming decently popular on the app, telling the tale to many others to spread awareness. Of course, the app started to die off and eventually got shut down. I made some good friends from the app, of course proving they were real. 2 of which I met in real life. Obviously I'm better at vetting people now. Don't worry. I've always had real-life friends too outside of just Steve and David. Me and David are still best friends till this day. He moved away, but we still make time to fly out and visit each other. I have a real girlfriend now too. I'd say I'm doing much better now. Moral of the story is, don't trust anybody off the bat. No matter how desperate you are for a helping hand, don't grab the hand until you know it's clean. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.